It's hard to argue that the returnee versus new player season formats aren't broken. In 3 seasons of a full tribe of returnees versus a full tribe of newbies, including fans versus favorites 1 and 2, and blood versus water, we've had 8 of the 9 players in the final 3 be returning players. Technically, Micronesia didn't have a final 3 format, but while Suri technically didn't make the final tribal council, the final 3 of the season was still all returnees. If we count season where there's a couple all-stars against new players, I think that gets us to 12 of 23, which is still a huge ratio, though they tend not to win those seasons as much. There's a bunch of reasons for this, but Survivor is definitely a skill set you have to build. Even just being used to cameras is a big advantage. But can the format ever work? I think it's probably better now than it used to be, simply because the casting tends to get fewer people who would just have no idea what's going on, and Edge of Extinction having most returnees go out pretty early is a sign of that evolution, but it's not enough to overcome those disparities in game skill, and from a watching perspective, we don't tend to get to know the new players quite as well because a lot of the camera time goes to the returnees. So I'm generally not in favor of these mixed casts, but if we're going to make it work, I think it would actually be a decent format for a First Boots season. I've always been interested in seeing some second shots for First Boots, but when we did see one brought back on a full tribe of all-stars, Francesca in Fans vs. Favorites 2, she was promptly voted out again. Unfortunately, it'd be pretty difficult to do a full season of First Boots. Several probably wouldn't want to return after their original experience, and especially in earlier seasons, the players already skewed much older, to the point that a quarter of the total possible options are pushing 70. Which isn't necessarily disqualifying, we've seen contestants in their 60s and 70s before, but it's not something that everyone can do. We'd also have to disqualify anyone who was the first boot of an all-star season, something which we don't have to consider when casting an all-winners season. I do think this means if you are looking to have a mixed cast season, this is the best opportunity for it. There's not the same disparity in skill or experience, especially with today's more game-savvy casts, nor is there the same impetus to focus only on fan favorites since they're not as established. I'd love to try to do a fan cast for a First Boots tribe like this if there's interest, so let me know what you think about the idea.